Chapter 20, the dynasty of Puru, text 27. Trayastrimshat shatam hi ashwan trayastrimshat shatam hyashwan badhva vismapayan nripan badhva vismapayan nripan daushmantir atyagan mayam daushmantiratyagan mayam devanam gurum ayayau devanam gurum ayayau trayastrimchat shatam hyashvan badhva vismapayan nripan daushmantiratyagan maya devanam gurumayayau. Trayastrimchat shatam hyashvan badhva vismapayan nripan daushmantiratyagan maya devanam gurumayayau. Trayastrimchat shatam hyashvan badhva vismapayan nripan daushmantiratyagan maya devanam gurumayayau. Trayastrimchat shatam hyashvan badhva vismapayan nripan daushmantiratyagan maya devanam gurumayayau. Trayaha, 3, trimshat, 30, shatam, 100, he, indeed, ashwan, horses, badhva, arresting in the yajna, vismapayan, astonishing, nripan, all other kings, daushmantihi, the son of Maharaja Dushmanta, atyagan, surpassed, mayam, material opulences, devanam, of the demigods, gurum, the supreme spiritual master, ayaya, achieved. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. Bharata, the son of Maharaj Dushmanta, bound 3,300 horses for those sacrifices, and thus he astonished all other kings. He surpassed even the opulence of the demigods, for he achieved the supreme spiritual master Hari. Please repeat this translation after me. Bharata, the son of Maharaj Dushmanta, bound 3,300 horses for those sacrifices, and thus he astonished all other kings. He surpassed even the opulence of the demigods, for he achieved the supreme spiritual master Hari. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. One who achieves the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead certainly surpasses all material wealth, even that of the demigods in the heavenly planets. Yam labdhva chaparam labham manyate nadhikam tataha. The achievement of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the most exalted achievement in life. In the sense, the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This section of the Bhagavatam describes the character of Maharaja Bharata. This Maharaja Bharata is the son of Maharaja Dushmanta. There are three famous Bharatas in Vedic history. One is the younger brother of Lord Ramachandra. The other one is the son of Rishabdev, who was also emperor of this world. And the third one is the son of Maharaj Dushmanta, Bharata. All three have got the same name. So this Bharata, son of Maharaj Dushmanta, he is described as the partial representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That means he didn't have the full power of the Supreme Lord. He had some power. And there were specific symptoms by which he was identified as a partial representation of Supreme Lord. He had the mark of Krishna's disc on the palm of his right hand. You see, any ordinary human being's palm will have some lines. That's all. There'll be nothing else. Whereas Supreme Lord's palm is full of different marks like Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma, the flag, the thunderbolt, the elephant driving rod, like that. There are so many different symbols. And depending on which are the marks, the scriptures describe Krishna's palm has got specific type of marks. Rama's palm has got specific marks. Narsimha's palm has got specific marks, like that. Different forms of the Supreme Lord have different marks. And if somebody is a partial incarnation, they'll not have all those marks. They will have only some of the symptoms. Just like this Bharata had the mark of Lord Krishna's disc, Sudarshan Chakra, on his palm of his right hand. On the sole of his feet, bottom of his feet, again, if you see the bottom of our feet, there are no marks other than some lines. But the bottom of his feet had the mark of a lotus whorl, the center portion of a lotus flower. That mark was there on the bottom of his feet. So, by these marks, he was identified as a partial representation of the Supreme Lord. So, he had extraordinary power, he had extraordinary wealth, he had extraordinary beauty, everything extraordinary as compared to even the best of demigods. So, he performed so many horse sacrifices. They describe he performed 55 horse sacrifices on the bank of the Ganga, and he performed 78 horse sacrifices on the bank of the Yamuna. So 55 plus 78 exceeds 100. Indra is famous for having performed 100 horse sacrifices. But Bharata, the son of Dushmanta, exceeded the number of horse sacrifices performed by Indra. And not only that, he performed so many horse sacrifices, he even personally got 3,300 horses for performing these horse sacrifices. Now, what is the difficulty in getting such horses for horse sacrifice? Because the horse which is to be offered in sacrifice should have particular characteristics. It's not that any horse can be picked up and used for a horse sacrifice. Ashwamedha Yajna. So, such horses are very, very, very rarely found among thousands or lakhs of horses. Maybe one horse may be there which may have all these characteristics. But Bharata, the son of Maharaja Dushmanta, he astonished all other kings by securing 3,300, that is 3,300 horses suitable for performing horse sacrifice. That means he was having complete control over the entire world. When you say emperor of the world, it is not some namesake person sitting claiming himself, I am the emperor of the world, Chakravarti. No, he actually has control. And that is evident from his securing 3,300 horses suitable for horse sacrifice. It means among millions of horses, he would have arranged to search for these particular horses. And he secured them. For what? Not for having some collector's item. No. It's like nowadays they try to get cars from all over the world. And they have a museum where they display those cars. This is not some show off. It's actually for performing horse sacrifice. Now, why perform horse sacrifice? A king or an emperor should perform sacrifices for the welfare of the entire kingdom. Only when sacrifices are performed, there will be plenty of supply of all the necessities of all the creatures, including the human beings. Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyad anna sambhavaha yajnad bhavati parjanyo yajna karma samudbhavaha. So in the Bhagavad Gita it is described, unless there are sacrifices performed, there will not be sufficient rains. And unless there are sufficient rains, there won't be natural produce. We cannot get our essential needs by industry, by factories, by human beings exploiting the resources of nature. No. Because the basic raw materials, even for such factories, are only produced by material nature under the direction of the Supreme Lord, who has made this arrangement that by performing yajna, we can get all our necessities in plenty. So whether people perform sacrifices individually or not, the king, who is the ruler of the people in general, he performs sacrifices himself, by which there is plenty of supply of all the necessities, not only for the humans, but even for the animals, the birds, all the creatures. So all the living beings in the kingdom can live peacefully, happily, and make spiritual progress towards the ultimate goal of life. Even that is the responsibility of the king, to not only ensure the material needs are supplied sufficiently for their comfortable living, but this comfortable living will result in the people having the time and the facility for even practicing spiritual life to prepare themselves to go back to Godhead, which is the ultimate goal of life. So the king has to ensure all this. And Bharat Maharaj, the son of Maharaja Dushmanta, he surpassed the opulence of the demigods simply because he was a great devotee of the Supreme Lord. By performing all these sacrifices and pleasing the Supreme Lord Hari, he achieved the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Hari. That is the greatest achievement. Generally, in the material world, everyone thinks of achievement in terms of material wealth, material possessions, material power, material opulence. No, that is not the greatest achievement. Because all these material opulences and material power, material wealth is perishable. First of all, it is limited, and secondly, it is perishable. In course of time, it is all lost. Whereas somebody who gets shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna, their achievement is the greatest because that is permanent shelter, permanent protection, permanent achievement, the highest achievement. Why? Because Krishna is the unlimited Supreme Lord. Krishna is the unlimited Supreme Lord. And his full opulences are actually in his personal kingdom, in the spiritual world. What is displayed in the material world are also opulences of the Supreme Lord. He is the only owner of everything. But in the material world, what is displayed is his inferior energy. This is described in the Bhagavad Gita. Apareyam itastu anyam prakritim vidhime param. His material energy is his inferior energy. So the entire material world, all the material forms of the living entities, the material possessions that we have, the constitution of the material planets, everything is made up of matter which is belonging to the inferior energy. And the living entity and the spiritual world are constituted of Krishna's superior spiritual energy. What's the difference? Spiritual energy is having a consciousness. Material energy lacks consciousness. So, material energy is dead. It's dead matter. Dead. There is no life. That's why when a person is not yet mature or sufficiently developed, the person thinks in terms of only some material wealth, material possessions. But after getting sufficient material possessions, a person tries to enjoy. Person realizes these things cannot give me much of pleasure. So real pleasure is not in matter, but in spirit. So then that spirit means living persons. That is the first understanding that we have of spirit. Living persons, different from dead matter. So therefore, a person thinks, or to enjoy just having some material possessions is not enough. I have to have a nice relationship. That is when a person thinks of getting married. And then after marriage, even relationship with one other person is not enough. Why? Because that other person is also a limited person. So then one tries to expand that relationship by having children. Then even children, how many children can a person have? Then further expand by having friendship, relations, other interaction with other relatives, friends, and all kinds of society, community, nation, the whole human society. Like this one goes on expanding, but ultimately all the relationships with different categories of persons put together is very, very limited. What the person does not realize is how many ever other persons I may have relationship, I myself am very, very, very tiny and limited. So that also a person can realize when the person cannot give sufficient time to different people, even for enjoying with them in a specific relationship. He'll find he'll not have enough time. But by yogic power, a person can expand himself into so many forms. So how many forms can he expand by yogic power? Maximum a yogi can expand into 10 forms. So then he tries to enjoy by expanding his one form into 10 forms. Even that is not sufficient. So ultimately, one realizes all insufficiencies are because of our forgetfulness of Krishna. And what kind of forgetfulness of Krishna? Because of our forgetfulness of our relationship with Krishna. So this word yoga, particularly in the Bhagavad Gita, this word yoga has been used. So Srila Prabhupada gives a meaning of this word yoga, which is very, very fundamental for understanding the spiritual science. Prabhupada translates this word yoga in the 4th chapter, 1st verse. Imam vivasvate yogam proktavan aham avyayam. So I instructed this science of yoga to sun god some millions of years back, Krishna tells Arjuna. So that word yoga, Prabhupada translates as the science of one's relationship with the Supreme Lord. You will never find this definition in any of the other non-parampara translations of Bhagavad Gita. You will never find this. It's only in the parampara system we understand exactly what is the meaning of that word yoga used by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. In one place it is said, Bhagavad Gita is Yoga Shastra. It is describing the science of yoga. But what is that yoga? Yoga means the signs of one's relationship with the Supreme. And that relationship is what we are missing. What we are missing. So in order to re-establish that forgotten relationship with Krishna is the process of spiritual life. It is a practice of yoga. Therefore, Prabhupada says, yoga means bhakti yoga. And all other yogas are actually steps to come to the point of bhakti yoga. 6th chapter, Prabhupada explains. Yoga means bhakti yoga. Because only through bhakti yoga, one can understand oneself, one can know who is Krishna, and one can understand what is the relationship between me and Krishna. This is called bhakti. So, the king or the emperor who is conversant with the Vedic literature knows that it is the responsibility and duty of the king to not only ensure that in his kingdom everyone has sufficient supplies of all their basic necessities, material needs, but also he guides them in helping them to establish their forgotten relationship with Krishna. He guides them spiritually to make progress, to achieve spiritual perfection of achieving the shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. So here it is said that not only Bharata performed these sacrifices so very nicely, perfectly, that there was plenty of material supplies in his kingdom, and so much supply was there that his opulence surpassed those of the demigods. The demigods are thousands and millions of times more opulent than the people on the earth, generally, in the ordinary case. But here, Maharaja Dushmanta's son Bharata, on the earth, the opulences that he was able to secure was more than the opulence of the demigods on the heavenly planets. So everybody was astonished, including the Devatas, by this Bharata. And the secret is, he was not aiming for getting some opulences, just material opulences more than what the demigods have. His aim was to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thereby get shelter at his lotus feet. And by doing so, all other needs, necessities will be automatically fulfilled without any separate endeavor. Similarly, for us the lesson is, we don't have to really endeavor materially so much as we have to endeavor to nicely chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If we chant very nicely, then by the mercy of the Supreme Lord Krishna in the form of his holy name, all our material desires, material necessities will be fulfilled. But that does not mean we become lazy, the name of practicing spiritual life. We have to do our material duties. Devotee does not mean he disregards all material duties. No. Devotee is very, very careful to perform all material duties. But material duties alone is not enough. It may at best give you all your material necessities, but your heart will not be satisfied, will not be peaceful will not be happy simply by material needs being fulfilled. You require the love of Krishna, Krishna Prema, to satisfy you completely. And that is available only by bhakti to Krishna. And that is best performed, easily performed, effectively performed by chanting Hare Krishna. I'll stop here. Prantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.